On the 10th of November 2023, Chuck E. Cheese held a grand reopening of their Northridge, California store to celebrate the permanent home of the Munch's Make Believe Band as a callback vintage store, making a large production out of it, even including the guest appearance of Nolan Bushnell, who was the original founder of Chuck E. Cheese. However, this strikes a bit of concern into me as a Rock-afire enthusiast. Will Chuck E. Cheese save any of their 3-stage shows? I did a little bit of digging, and from reading some of the articles I found about the store's big reopening, it appears that from the wording, this is the permanent home of the last animatronic store in the system. Now, this could just be a classic case of news article inaccuracy, but knowing CEC Entertainment has just been ripping and tearing shows out left and right for their 2.0 remodels, it really makes me wonder, is this going to actually be the only animatronic band that they save? My name is Beach Kai, and today we're going to talk about this, and I hope you join me. So, if you're a Chuck head, I don't really think I need to explain this to you, but if you're a new Chuck E. Cheese lore enthusiast or you just stumbled across this video in the algorithm, here's a brief background on the 3-stage. Many eons ago, back in 1980, there existed a restaurant known as Showbiz Pizza Place, which was the dominating force in the animatronic pizza restaurant scene. However, due to the video game crash in the 80s, Showbiz Pizza and Chuck E. Cheese would merge together and create Showbiz Pizza Time Incorporated. And then just a few short years later, they would get rid of Showbiz Pizza Place and the band that performed there, the Rock-afire Explosion, entirely with a process called concept unification, which turned the Rock-afire characters into what you see before you now, the Munch's Make Believe Band. Because of concept unification and the Rock-afire Explosion, every single existing Chuck E. Cheese stage was also modified, which included the other stage types as well, such as the 1-stage, the 2-stage, and the road stage to name a few, which all had different robots called Cyberamics as compared to the creative engineering built bots. The Cyberamic bots at Northridge are what still exist, and they are not former Showbiz bots because they are a 2-stage setup. In fact, there are still quite a few 2 stages left, more so than 3 stages, which are now down to 5 originals left, if you don't count the CU1 stage in Springfield, which is an entirely different setup on its own. The 3 stage was probably the quickest type of stage to be removed for the Studio C setup among all of the other stage types. If you look at where the Studio Cs are installed, most of them are installed in former Showbiz restaurants. The 3 stage arguably is probably one of the most endangered of the Chuck E. Cheese stages at this time, with plenty of Studio C stages of all varieties still existing as they were installed beyond the concept unification date. Ever since the original process of concept unification had started, the number of 3 stages still remaining has gotten smaller and smaller and smaller with each year that passes, and some of these stages are incredibly well kept, such as the former 3 stage in Huntsville, Alabama, which had the same technician working there for almost 40 years, meaning that he had been there since the Showbiz Pizza days. Unfortunately though, it's been proven that nothing can stop the 2.0 process, and now down to the last 5 with many having their twilight era allegedly fast approaching, it's unclear if any of these stages will actually be saved or if they will get the chance to live on like Northridge's stage. However, I do have a bit of a theory as to how and what conditions must be met in order for one of these stages to be saved. What a lot of people may or may not know about Northridge's survival from the 2.0 torch is that it was actually done because fans of the animatronics actually spoke up publicly, like a lot. And this eventually caught wind by some of the higher-ups at CEC Entertainment electing for them to keep the bots. However, this is only half of what fans were actually asking. You see, before the remodel, the store was known to be the last fully 90s Chuck E. Cheese, as it was still in Phase 3 and had remained that way since the store was remodeled. For those unfamiliar, Phase 3 is a term used to describe the decor and design of Chuck E. Cheese restaurants, both on the interior and exterior. This is where the iconic Cool Thumb Chuck logo is most remembered from. For many, it was their first introduction to Chuck E. Cheese, and for me, it was the one that I remember the most growing up as a kid. However, the 2.0 remodel requires that all old relics are destroyed, including the animatronics. The unfortunate part of this was that almost all of the old Phase 3 decor was either destroyed, sent to storage, or painted over, and now it looks like a regular 2.0 store from the outside and inside. However, because fans spoke up, the animatronics were saved, and that's kind of a win, I guess. I see it as a big step to saving other stages because the removal of the animatronics has only been getting more and more backlash, not just by fans but also regular Chuck E. Cheese customers, partially because of the increased hype surrounding the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise, especially with the new movie, as well as the fact that they are becoming icons of nostalgia to kids and adults of all ages. Once they're all gone, that's it. They're gone for good, and the only place you'd be able to see these animatronics is a place like Disneyland or in a private collection, which, unfortunately, not everybody is willing to just let some random person waltz in to view their $1,000 robot collection. So how can we save other stages, and more importantly, how can we save a 3-stage? One of my favorite content creators, Chris Bauer, better known as Set Streets and Eats in the community, actually mentioned in his store tour of Northridge that the Northridge store was saved because the fans spoke up. so loudly about how the store was a treasure, an icon of 90s Americana, and that it shouldn't be remodeled. With rumors of a retro store going around in the community for as long as one can remember, it was believed that this was finally going to be an actual thing, and that many of the stages would actually be saved for the foreseeable future, until these articles began coming out about how Northridge would be permanent and the last location where somebody could see these robots. Now, I can't say for sure that this is true. Through the grapevine, many have claimed that CEC is going to save other stages, but if I know one thing about hearing facts, you can't be certain on which stores will be saved and when they'll be saved, so that brings me to my final point. The simple answer? Yes. The complicated answer? Possibly, but not quite. You see, there's been a mountain of evidence that suggests that the 3-stage would actually be saved. But the problem is, some of it is controversial, and some of it doesn't seem to be 100% accurate. There have been tons of reports and allegations that 3-stage bots from former stores have been sent to the SPT warehouse in Topeka, Kansas, which is where Chuck E. Cheese sends a lot of their old stuff to be stored. It is assumed that they would be used for future uses like a museum or a showbiz retro store, but there are a few flaws with these theories. The more believable reason would be that the bots have been sent for parts for the remaining 3-stage stores. When the original announcement for the 2.0 store transition was announced, it was also announced that parts for the shows would no longer be produced by the parts department, meaning that technicians would be forced to work with what they had, which caused many shows, including many 3-stage shows, to fall into disrepair. The 3-stage robots all had very unique parts on them, and were a lot more intricate and advanced than the Cyberamics, and because of this, it was easier for them to fall into a state of mechanical failure, resulting in more stores calling for a 2.0 rebuild, and more stages to be removed and either replaced with different bots or just closing altogether. One by one, each year after the remodel rollout was announced, more and more 3 stages would be destroyed. And if the theory about the bots being held for a retro store is too, great. But if the more believable theory about them being used for parts until stores remodel ends up being true, then unfortunately it may not be as easy as trying to save a Cyberamic show. However, the whole reason that Northridge's store was saved was due to the appeal of it being an older store. And even if the fact of it being the last location to view a Chuck E. Cheese animatronic show is true, one thing is certain: our voice is important. With only 5 3-stages being left across the world and each one being on borrowed time in terms of a remodel date, the only thing left that can be done is if we the community speak up to save these extremely historic robots. They tell a story that to a normal person is nothing, but for a fan of the animatronics and the band themselves, they tell a story of tragedy, rebirth, and more importantly, a time that once was and is now forgotten. Even though it would be easier to just scream to corporate to save at least one 3-stage, the reason Northridge was saved was because of how many people spoke up about Northridge specifically. If you look at all of the remaining 3 stages left, nearly all of them are in disrepair, minus one in particular, in Pineville, North Carolina. Is this the stage that would be the most practical to save and turn into another retro store? Maybe, maybe not. But it's up to us, the community, to come together and make it happen. Although I'd elect for the closest 3-stage to me, Tallahassee, to be saved, even I know that it might not be redeemable, and that at this point it's better to elect for a well-kept stage with more history behind it than Tallahassee, which didn't even open up as a showbiz to begin with. That being said, many may argue that Charlotte's stage doesn't have a historic reason to be saved, and that it's very overrated. But I argue that Northridge, which was originally the last fully 90s Chuck E. Cheese, has now been stripped of that identity, and is just another 2.0 store, just with robots. So with that logic, the same thing would happen to Pineville, but maybe, just maybe, it could be a 2.0 store with a 3-stage, the last original and well-kept 3-stage of them all. Is it possible? My best guess is that at this point, it might just be wishful thinking. But if we can all come together and make it happen, I think we can save at least one 3-stage before it's too late. Too many historic Chuck E. Cheese relics have been destroyed and grossly disposed of as if there was no significant historic value to them at all, and I would hate to see this happen to a 3-stage. This stage not only shows a time in Chuck E. Cheese's history that shows how diverse the stores can be, but it's a time capsule for people who grew up with the store and knew it was a showbiz pizza place. The original Rockafire characters, now reskinned to be a Munch's make-believe band. And I think it's a crucial historic piece that needs to be kept, if all else. If what CEC Entertainment is saying is true and they are really finally starting to take a notice to their history and listen to their fans and customers, then this is a business move that needs to be done. With Northridge being on the West Coast and the store basically being kept as a museum at this point, it makes more sense to have an East Coast version of the store, completely diverse and different from that of Northridge, with an entirely different animatronic setup to be kept, saved, and maintained for the foreseeable future. This very stage is the reason that the Munch's make-believe animatronics are what they are. Getting rid of it would be like pretending that a whole chapter of Chuck E. Cheese's history simply never existed, and that's why I'm asking you, the audience, to speak up and let CEC Entertainment know that we need to save at least one of these stages. Some of them won't be allegedly remodeled until next year, or even 2 years from now. If this is actually true, it means that there may be time to save just one 3-stage before it's too late. So in simple terms, the best way for a 3-stage to be saved is if the community comes together to make it happen. By sharing your videos from the store, posts, and using hashtags of a specific store to draw attention to not just the general public, but eventually CEC corporate as well. So with that in mind, I ask you to share not just this video, but any video you may take of the store with the hashtag SavePineville to keep just one 3-stage alive. Pineville is the last best kept 3-stage. Even though Chuck E. Cheese has stopped programming all of their animatronics, I think by using old show tapes, it could give even more of a retro feel to the bots, which is the whole reason that Northridge was kept in the first place. So to the audience, I ask you to speak up, make your voice heard. Maybe by joining forces together, we as a community can unite and save this piece of Americana before it's too late. But until that time, if you enjoyed this video or you learned something from it, go ahead and leave a comment below with your thoughts. But just remember to be civil, as it's an open discussion as long as you're typing with your best interest. Be sure to subscribe to my channel as well if you haven't already with the bell on for instant updates, and leave a like to help spread this video around. The more traction it gets, the higher the chance of somebody seeing this video, raising more awareness about the significance of this stage. Until the next video, my name is Beach Kai, and I hope you have a blessed and prosperous day. Thank you so much for 500 subscribers, and thank you for watching.